and then I handed out for each of you a past paper from November 2009. So I'm going to give you the memo sommer now as well. Do not throw question 11 away. Dit is deel van die syllabus, we're just not doing it before this test series. So wanneer ons klaar is met die grafieke van die afgeleides en julle toetsreeks klaar is en julle kom terug volgende kwartaal, gaan ons met hierdie begin. So I'm going to give you the memo for question 11 as well. En dan kan jy dit later gebruik wanneer jy daai leer. Okay. So for number 2, they gave us a parabola, meaning that the original function must be a cubic graph. En as dit 'n derde graadse funksie is, beteken dit mos hy het 2 draaipunte, hy het 'n lokale maksimum en hy het 'n lokale minimum. So if I draw this graph of the derivative, en hy lyk so. Do you guys agree that I split it up at 1 and 5? Nee? Okay. Sien julle dat aan hierdie kant van die 1 is die afgeleide groter as 0? Do you guys see that? On the left-hand side van die stippellyntjies is die parabool bo die x-as, meaning that it is a positive graph. Hy het positiewe y-waardes. Here in the middle, we have the first derivative will be negative, want hierdie stukkie van die grafiek lê onder die x-as, wat beteken dis 'n negatiewe grafiek. And then after 5, kom nou. We have that again. So hierdie ene gaan wees stygend, dalend, stygend. So. And in that you have all the information you need to answer the question. So hulle sê vir jou vir watter waardes van x neem f toe. So for the original function to be ascending, we need the first derivative to be positive. So dit gaan wees vir x kleiner as 1 of x groter as 5. So hierdie stuk van die grafiek en hierdie stuk van die grafiek. Goed. Verstaan julle almal hoekom? En dan as hulle vra waar neem hy af, dan sal dit nou net daai stukkie in die middel wees. Soos dit. As hulle vir jou sê by B gee die x-waardes van die draaipunte, sal dit wees waar die eerste afgeleide gelyk is aan 0. You didn't need to write that down, but that's how I know those will be the stationary points, because that is the x-intercepts of the parabola. Met ander woorde, dit is waar my eerste afgeleide gelyk is aan 0. En as jy die vorm het, dan weet jy die lokale maksimum gaan wees by x gelyk aan 1 en die lokale minimum gaan wees by x gelyk aan 5. Okay. Goed. Now, quickly before we carry on to the next part, if this is the graph of the first derivative, this is the graph of the first derivative. Wat se tipe grafiek gaan die tweede afgeleide wees? 'n reguit lyn, né? Soos daai een wat ons nou gedoen het met die derde graadse funksie, die parabool en die reguit lyn op hom. If I get the x value of the turning point of this graph, stem julle saam, hy gaan reguit in die middel van 1 en van 5 lê. Want 'n parabool is mos 'n simmetriese vorm. So the x value here I don't know what the y value of the turning point will be, but this will be at 3 and a y value. Want 3 is 'n helfte of halfpad tussen 1 en 5. Meaning that if I draw this parabola, it will look something like this. If I draw this straight line, beteken dit hy gaan so iets lyk en hy gaan daarso die x-as sny by 3. Okay, now this is very important. What will the x value of the point of inflection of f be? Wat sal die x-waarde van die buigpunt van die oorspronklike funksie wees? It will be where the second derivative is equal to 0. Met ander woorde, die buigpunt van fx lê op dieselfde plek as die draaipunt van daai ene, by dieselfde x-waarde. En dit sal wees waar daai ene gelyk is aan 0. So in ons geval is dit by x gelyk aan 3. So the point of inflection of the original graph will be on the same x value as the turning point of my parabola, which will be where the second derivative is equal to 0. And in the case of this graph, it will be at 3. At levels. Okay. So I'm going to jump straight in with question 10 from 2009. Okay. Goed, hulle sê vir ons, skryf die x-koördinate neer van die draaipunte van die oorspronklike funksie. So that is the sketch of the graph of the first derivative. Meaning that the original function must be a cubic graph. And where will we find the turning points of the cubic graphs? It will be where the first derivative is equal to 0. Met ander woorde, dit gaan wees by x gelyk aan 1 en by x gelyk aan 2. Because that is where the graph of my first derivative is equal to 0. Now for the next one, we need to state whether they are local maximums or local minimums. So do you guys agree that for x smaller than 1, for x smaller than 1, we have that, meaning that it will be ascending. X. Let's stick to the Afrikaans. Stijgend. Okay. And then for the interval x between 1 and 2, vier punte. So jy moet nou hulle vorm uitsit. Wat beteken hy's dalend? And then for x bigger than 2, the first derivative is positive again. Which means that it looks something like this. So uit daai 3 ek wil amper sê berekeninge, maar uit daai 3 stellings kan jy mos nou daai vorm aflei. It has to be ascending, it has a turning point, descending, it has a turning point, ascending. So then we can deduct that the local max will be at x equal to 1. So daar. En hy lê mos aan die linkerkant, so hy moet die kleiner een van die twee waardes wees. And the local minimum will be at x equal to 2, which is on the right hand side. So the bigger of the two values. Okay. Almal reg tot by 10.2. Do you all understand how I get the shape from the graph of the first derivative? Fantastic. Now they say, determine the x-coordinate of the point of inflection of f, meaning you have to take it back to the original graph. Met ander woorde, ek soek die x-coördinaat van die draaipunt van die parabool. What will the x-coordinate of the turning point of the parabola be? Yeah. It has to be in the middle. And this wasn't asked, but if I had to draw the graph of the second derivative, that would be the x-intercept of my straight line. Dit is nie gevra nie, maar julle sien dit, né? And now they're asking hence or otherwise draw a sketch graph of f. Sien julle, hy tel net 2 punte. Ons kan mos nie die y-afsnit kry van hierdie grafiek nie. Right? We can't get the y-intercept of this graph. So the only things that we know is where the two turning points is in terms of only the x values. We don't know what their y values are either. So ons weet net waar hulle x waardes van hulle draaipunte is en ons weet hoe die vorm lyk. So that's the only things you have to indicate. You just have to draw an axis. And it has to look something like this. Or you could do that, showing that it has an x value of 1 and the x value of 2. So stem julle saam, ek kon hom nie aan hierdie kant geteken het nie, want dan gaan daai x waarde by 'n negatiewe waarde lê. It has to be with both of the turning points on the right hand side of the y-axis. En ons nie eintlik enigiets anders wat jy daar kan sit nie. As jy wou, kon jy die punt van infleksie ook daar gaan opsit het. But it only counts 2 points. So they're only looking for, you know the shape of the graph, and you know that both the turning points will be on the right hand side of the y-axis. Okay. Ek gaan gou